The prison ship moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Commander Zyrith stood at the window of her office and watched the lights of distant suns. She was tall, even for a Valdorian, with 4 violet eyes and skin the color of deep ocean water. Her people had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They feared nothing, but today, something felt wrong. 3 days ago, our patrol ships had found a small escape pod floating near the outer rim. Inside was a single creature, a human male. He was unconscious when they found him, his pod damaged and running out of air. The rescue team had brought him aboard and placed him in a standard prison cell. Zyrith had not thought much about it at the time. Humans were a young species, barely 200 years into space travel. They were small, weak, and short-lived. Most Valdorians saw them as little more than clever animals. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They died from things as simple as cold weather or bad food. This human was named Cole Bennett, according to the data in his pod. He had been a crew member on a ship called the Meridian, which had been destroyed. Somewhere in the outer rim, he was the only survivor. Zyrith decided to go see him. The prison level was quiet. Most of the cells were empty because this was a military ship, not a transport vessel. The guards nodded to her as she passed, their weapons ready but relaxed. No one expected trouble from a single human. She found Cole Bennett sitting in the middle of his cell. His legs were crossed and his hands rested on his knees. His eyes were closed. He looked like he was sleeping, but Zyrith knew he was not. His breathing was too controlled, too even. She studied him through the clear wall of the cell. He was average in every way. Medium height, brown hair, a face that would not stand out in any crowd. He wore the simple gray clothes they gave to all prisoners. There was nothing special about him, and yet Zyrith could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. She had been standing there for almost an hour when the human finally spoke. "You have been watching me for a long time." "Commander," Cole said. His eyes remained closed. "If you have questions, I am happy to answer them." Zyrith felt her secondary heart skip a beat. She had not told him her rank. She had not spoken a single word since entering the prison level. "How do you know what I am?" she demanded. Cole opened his eyes. They were ordinary brown eyes, the kind that millions of humans had. But when he looked at her, Zyrith felt like she was standing at the edge of a very deep hole. "I know many things, Commander Zyrith," he said. His voice was soft and calm. "I know your fleet has 47 warships. I know you are 3 days from the consortium border. And I know that in about 6 hours, you will receive a message that will change everything you believe about the universe." He tilted his head slightly, watching her. "The question is whether you will be wise enough to listen." Zyrith did not move. She had commanded warships for 60 years. She had faced enemies that would make most species run in terror. She had never felt afraid of a prisoner before. She felt afraid now. "You are a prisoner on my ship," she said, keeping her voice steady. "You are in no position to make threats." "I am not making threats," Cole replied. "I am stating facts. There's a difference." He smiled slightly. "You found me floating in space, alone and helpless. You put me in a cell designed for common criminals. You did not even assign guards to watch me. Should I have?" "No," Cole shook his head. "You treated me the way you would treat any lost traveler. You did not hurt me. You did not torture me for information. You simply waited to see what I was." He stood up slowly, his movements careful and unthreatening. "That tells me something about you, Commander. It tells me you are curious rather than cruel. It tells me you think before you act. Those are rare qualities in this part of the galaxy." Zyrith did not know how to respond to this. She was used to prisoners who begged for mercy or screamed threats or sat in silent fear. She was not used to prisoners who analyzed her character. "What happened to your ship?" she asked, changing the subject. "The Meridian. Our scans showed it was destroyed by weapons fire, not an accident." Something changed in Cole's eyes. For just a moment, the calm mask slipped, and Xyrath saw something underneath. It looked like grief. It looked like rage. It looked like something very old and very dangerous. Then it was gone, hidden behind that ordinary human face. "We were attacked," Cole said quietly. 73 people were on that ship. Good people. Most of them had families waiting for them back home. "Who attacked you?" "That is a complicated question." Cole sat back down, returning to his cross-legged position. "The short answer is that someone wanted something I have. They were willing to kill everyone on my ship to get it. What do you have that is worth 73 lives?" Cole looked up at her, and again Xyrath felt that strange sensation of standing at the edge of an abyss. "Knowledge," he said simply. "Very old knowledge. The kind that most species have forgotten existed." Before Xyrath could ask another question, her communication device buzzed. She pulled it from her belt and read the message. It was from the bridge, marked urgent. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Consortium. They are asking about a prisoner. They want to know if we have a human named Cole Bennett." Xyrath looked at the human in the cell. He had not moved, but there was something new in his expression. Something that might have been satisfaction. 6 hours, he said quietly. "I may have been off by a few minutes. My apologies." Xyrath turned and walked quickly toward the bridge, her mind racing. The Galactic Consortium was the oldest and most powerful organization in known space. They did not contact minor empires like the Voldorians. They did not concern themselves with individual prisoners. Something very strange was happening. And somehow, this ordinary-looking human was at the center of it. She reached the bridge to find her officers gathered on the main screen. Admiral Varath, her second-in-command, was staring at the transmission with an expression she had never seen on his face before. It was fear. "What is it?" Xyrath demanded. "What did they send?" Varath turned to look at her. His voice was barely a whisper. "They sent an image of the prisoner, and they asked us a question." He stepped aside so she could see the screen. The image showed Cole Bennett's face. Below it were 5 words that made no sense at all. "Do you understand what you have?" Xyrath stared at the message. She thought about the human sitting calmly in his cell, talking about old knowledge and messages that would change everything. She thought about the look in his eyes. That brief glimpse of something ancient and powerful. And for the first time in 60 years of command, Xyrath had no idea what to do next. The bridge of the Valdorian command ship was silent. Every officer stood frozen, staring at the message from the Galactic Consortium. Commander Xyrath read the words again and again, trying to make sense of them. "Do you understand what you have?" Admiral Varath moved closer to her, his voice low so the others would not hear. "Commander, the Consortium has not contacted us directly in 400 years. The last time they sent a message to our empire, it was to warn us about a species that no longer exists. I know our history. Admiral, then you know this is serious." Varath glanced at the image of Cole Bennett on the screen. "What is so special about one human?" Xyrath did not answer. She walked to her command chair and sat down, her mind working through the problem. The Consortium was made up of the oldest species in the galaxy, races that had been building empires when the Voldorians were still learning to make fire. They controlled the hyperlanes, the ancient pathways that allowed ships to travel between stars. They made the rules that everyone else followed, and they were asking about a prisoner in her cell. "Pull up everything we have on humans," she ordered. "Everything? I want to know their history, their abilities, their weaknesses. I want to know why the consortium cares about them." Her officers went to work. Data filled the screens around the bridge, streams of information about the human species. Most of it was familiar. Humans had been discovered about 200 years ago, a young race that had just learned to travel beyond their home star. They were physically weak compared to most other species. They lived short lives, rarely more than 100 years. They had no telepathy, no natural armor, no special abilities. They should have been nothing. Just another minor species in a galaxy full of minor species. But there was something else in the data, something buried deep in the classified files. Xyrath found it after almost an hour of searching. It was a warning sent from the consortium to all member species. The document was old, older than the Valdorian Empire itself. It had been copied and passed down through generations, kept secret from everyone except the highest commanders. The warning was simple. It contained 3 words and a list of names. Do not harm the architects. Below the warning were 12 names. 12 humans who were to be treated with complete respect. Their requests were to be granted without question. Their safety was to be protected at any cost. The 7th name on the list was Cole Bennett. Xyrath stared at the screen. Her hands were shaking. She had commanded fleets, fought in wars, watched stars die. Nothing had ever made her hands shake. "Commander?" Vorath was watching her with concern. "What did you find?" Before she could answer, the lights on the bridge flickered. A strange sound filled the air, like distant thunder or the echo of a very large bell. And then Cole Bennett walked through the door. He moved calmly, as if he were taking a walk through a garden rather than entering the command center of a warship. The guards who should have stopped him were nowhere to be seen. The doors that should have been locked had opened without any alarm. Every officer on the bridge reached for their weapons. Xyrath raised her hand to stop them. "Wait," she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "Everyone wait." Cole stopped in the center of the bridge. He looked at the screens showing the consortium message, at the officers frozen with their hands on their guns, at Xyrath sitting in her command chair. "I apologize for the entrance," he said quietly. "I needed you to understand something important." "And what is that?" "That I am not your prisoner." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I never was." Vorath stepped forward, his weapon raised. "You are one human on a ship with 5,000 soldiers. You have no weapons, no allies, no way to escape. Explain to me how you are not a prisoner." Cole looked at the Admiral with something that might have been pity. "Admiral, your weapons will not fire. Your soldiers are asleep. Your ship's systems will do whatever I ask them to do." He spread his hands. "I did not come here to fight. I came here to talk. But I needed you to understand that this conversation is happening because I want it to happen, not because you captured me." "Prove it," Vorath growled. Cole sighed. He pointed at the main screen, and suddenly it was showing a view of the ship's engine room. Thousands of Valdorian soldiers lay on the floor, sleeping peacefully. None of them were hurt. None of them had any idea what had happened. "I could have killed them," Cole said. "I could have destroyed this ship with a thought. But that is not why I am here." He turned to face Xyrath. "You found the list, Commander. The one the consortium sent out long ago. You know my name is on it." Xyrath stood slowly. "Who are you? What are the architects?" "That is a very long story." Cole walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "How much do you know about the beginning of the universe?" "The beginning?" Xyrath shook her head. "That was billions of years ago. No one knows what happened then. Someone does." Cole's voice was soft, almost sad. "Billions of years ago, when the first stars were still forming, a species rose from the chaos. They were the first intelligent life in the universe. They had no teachers, no guides. They had to learn everything themselves." He turned to face her. "They learned very well, Commander. They learned how to shape matter and energy. They learned how to build pathways between the stars. They learned how to create life itself. You are talking about the consortium? No, the consortium came much later. Millions of years later. Cole shook his head. I am talking about a species that existed before anyone else. A species that built the universe as you know it. That is impossible, Vorath said. No species could survive for billions of years. They did not survive. At least, not in the way you mean. Cole sat down on the edge of a console, looking tired. At some point, they decided they were too powerful. They had shaped galaxies, created species, written the laws of physics. They were afraid of what they might become. What did they do? They chose to forget. Cole's eyes were distant, looking at something far away. They rewrote their own bodies, changed their own minds. They made themselves small and weak and short-lived. They hid themselves among the younger species, living ordinary lives, dying ordinary deaths. Xyrath felt the truth forming in her mind. Terrible and wonderful at the same time. They became human, she whispered. Cole nodded slowly. We became human. We forgot what we were. We built new civilizations, fought new wars, loved and lost and died like everyone else. For billions of years, we lived as mortals. But you remember. Some of us do? Cole looked up at her. There are 12 who keep the old knowledge alive. 12 who remember what we were and what we can do. Our job is to watch, to guide, to protect. We step in only when we must. The bridge was completely silent. Every officer was staring at Cole with expressions of shock and disbelief. Xyrath thought about the warning in the old files. Do not harm the architects. Now she understood why. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Why reveal yourself to us? Cole's expression darkened. Something cold moved behind his eyes. Because someone killed my crew. Someone murdered 73 innocent people trying to capture me. And I am going to find them. He stood up, and suddenly he seemed taller, larger, more present than any being Xyrath had ever seen. I could do this alone. I have done it before. But I would rather have allies who are not afraid of the truth. He extended his hand toward her. Will you help me, Commander Xyrath? Xyrath looked at the human's extended hand. Every instinct told her to step back, to call for guards, to treat this situation like the threat it should have been. But her instincts had been wrong about Cole Bennett from the beginning. She reached out and took his hand. Tell me who killed your crew, she said. Tell me everything. Cole's grip was warm, human, ordinary. It was strange to think that this hand had once shaped galaxies. There is a group called the Obsidian Circle, he began. They are made up of scientists and soldiers from a dozen different species. They have one goal, to discover the secrets of the architects and use them for themselves. How do they know about you? Fragments of knowledge have leaked over the years. Stories become legends. Legends become myths. But sometimes, someone finds actual proof. Cole released her hand and walked to the window again. The leader of the circle is a Kethrani scientist named Vornis. He spent his entire life searching for evidence that the architects were real. 5 years ago, he found it. Admiral Vorath moved closer, his earlier hostility replaced by careful attention. What kind of evidence? An artifact. A piece of technology from the old times, before we chose to forget. It should have been destroyed millions of years ago, but somehow it survived. Cole's jaw tightened. Vornis used it to track me. He followed me for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. The attack on the Meridian, Xyrath said. Yes, they disabled our engines first, then boarded the ship. They killed everyone who resisted. Cole's voice was flat, controlled, but Xyrath could hear the anger underneath. 73 people. Engineers, scientists, a cook named Danny who made the best coffee in the sector. They died because Vornis wanted to capture me and study me like a specimen, but you escaped. Barely. I was unconscious when they put me in the escape pod. They thought I was dead. A bitter smile crossed his face. I almost was. Even architects can be hurt if they are caught by surprise. Xyrath thought about this. An ancient being who had helped create the universe, almost killed by a group of scientists and soldiers. It seemed impossible, but she had seen enough impossible things in the last few hours to keep her mind open. Where is this obsidian circle now? They have a hidden base in the Nexion cluster. That is where they took the artifact, and that is where they are trying to unlock its secrets. Cole turned to face her. If they succeed, they will have power beyond anything the galaxy has seen in billions of years. They will be able to reshape reality itself. And you want to stop them. I need to stop them. Not just for revenge, though I will not pretend that is not part of it. His eyes were hard now, the eyes of someone who had made difficult decisions before. The power they are trying to unlock is dangerous. It was dangerous even when we used it carefully, with full understanding of what we were doing. In the hands of people like Vornis, it could destroy everything. Admiral Vorath spoke up. Why not handle this yourself? If you are what you say you are, why do you need our help? Because I am not what I used to be. Cole sat down heavily on a nearby chair. When we chose to become human, we gave up most of our power. The 12 of us who remember can still do things that seem like magic to younger species. But we are shadows of what we once were. You put my entire crew to sleep with a thought, Vorath pointed out. Yes, and doing so exhausted me more than I would like to admit. Cole rubbed his eyes. I can fight Vornis and his followers. I can probably win. But at what cost? How many more people will die while I struggle alone against an enemy that had years to prepare? He looked up at Xyrath. With your fleet, with your soldiers, we can end this quickly. We can minimize the damage and prevent Vornis from hurting anyone else. Xyrath considered this. She thought about her duty to the Valdorian Empire, about the risks of involving her people in a conflict between ancient powers. She thought about the warning in the old files and what might happen if she refused to help. But mostly, she thought about 73 dead crew members and a man who called one of them Danny and remembered that he made good coffee. You genuinely cared about them, she said quietly. Your crew. They were not just servants or tools to you. They were my friends. Cole's voice cracked slightly on the word. I have lived for a very long time, Commander. I have learned that the people around you are the only thing that makes existence worthwhile. Status, power, knowledge, none of it means anything if you have no one to share it with. Xyrath made her decision. Admiral Vorath set a course for the Nexion cluster. Full speed. Vorath hesitated for only a moment, then nodded. Yes, Commander. As the officers began preparing for the journey, a young woman entered the bridge. She was human, with short dark hair and a scar on her left cheek. She wore the uniform of a Valdorian medical worker, but she moved like a soldier. Cole stood up when he saw her. Myra, Cole. The woman crossed the bridge and embraced him tightly. I thought you were dead. When the ship exploded, I thought everyone was dead. Almost everyone was. Cole held her at arm's length, studying her face. How did you survive? I was in one of the rear compartments when they attacked. The blast threw me into an escape pod. Myra's expression darkened. I watched the Meridian burn from space. I saw them take your body. I thought they had killed you. They tried. Cole turned to Xyrath. Commander, this is Lieutenant Myra Hayes. She served with me on the Meridian. She's one of the few humans who knew what I really am before all this happened. Xyrath studied the young woman. There was pain in her eyes, but also strength. She had survived something terrible and come out the other side still standing. "You are welcome on my ship, Lieutenant," Xyrus said. "We are going to find the people who attacked you. Would you like to help?" Myra's smile was cold. "Very much, Commander." Over the next 3 days, Cole explained more about the architects and the Obsidian Circle. He told them about the artifact Vornis had found, a device that could tap into the fundamental forces of creation. He told them about the Circle's base, a hollowed-out asteroid protected by stolen technology from a dozen different species. He also told them about the risks. Vornis has been preparing for this moment for years. Cole said during one of their planning sessions, "He knows I am still alive. He will be expecting me to come for him." "Good," Myra said. "Let him expect us. Let him think he is ready." Cole looked at her with something like concern. "Myra, I understand your anger. I share it. But we cannot let emotion cloud our judgment. I am not emotional. I am determined." Myra leaned forward. "They killed Danny. They killed Captain Santos. They killed everyone I served with for 3 years. I want them to pay. And they will. But not at the cost of more innocent lives." Xyrith watched this exchange carefully. She was beginning to understand something important about Cole Bennett. Despite his ancient power, despite his impossible history, he was not a destroyer. He was a protector. "What is your plan?" she asked. Cole pulled up a holographic map of the Nexion cluster. "The asteroid is shielded against most forms of attack. Normal weapons will not penetrate. But there is a weakness." He pointed to a spot on the asteroid's surface. "Here, the shield generator draws power from the asteroid's core. If we can disrupt that power flow, even for a moment, the shields will drop. And then I walk in and end this." Cole's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Vornis wants to meet an architect. I intend to show him exactly what that means." She thought the human was a prisoner until he made the stars bow. A HFY science fiction story in 5 parts. Part 1. The caged beast commander Xyrith of the Voldorian Empire stood before the containment cell, her 4 violet eyes narrowing as she studied the creature inside. The human sat cross-legged on the floor, hands resting on his knees, eyes closed as if meditating. His name, according to the capture logs, was Cole Bennett. He had been found drifting in a damaged escape pod near the outer rim, the sole survivor of a vessel called the Meridian. The Voldorians had assumed he was a refugee, perhaps a slave who had escaped from one of the lesser species. Humans were, after all, a young race. Their technology was primitive. Their lifespans were laughably short. They had no telepathy, no natural armor, no venomous capabilities. Xyrith had ordered him placed in a standard detention cell, the kind used for captured laborers and low-value prisoners. She had not bothered to assign guards. That was her first mistake. Cole opened his eyes, and for just a moment, Xyrith felt something she had not experienced in decades of warfare: uncertainty. His gaze was calm, almost gentle, but there was something behind it. Something patient and immeasurably old. "You've been watching me for 3 hours," he said, his voice soft. "If you have questions, Commander, I'm happy to answer them." Xyrith's secondary heart stuttered. She had not told him her rank. "How do you know what I am?" she demanded. Cole smiled, and it did not reach his eyes. "I know a great many things, Commander Xyrith. I know your fleet consists of 47 warships. I know you're 3 days from the consortium border. And I know that in approximately 6 hours, you're going to receive a transmission that will change everything you believe about the universe." He tilted his head, studying her the way she had been studying him. "The question is whether you'll be wise enough to listen." Part 2. The weight of names. 6 hours passed. The transmission arrived. It came from the Galactic Consortium, the loose alliance of elder races that governed the known galaxy. Xyrith had expected demands. perhaps a warning about territorial violations. What she received instead was a single image and a question. The image showed Cole Bennett's face. The question was simple. Do you understand what you have? Zyrith summoned her senior officers to the command deck. Admiral Vorath, a scarred veteran of 100 campaigns, studied the transmission with growing unease. "This makes no sense," he growled. "The consortium doesn't concern itself with individual prisoners. They haven't contacted us directly in 4 centuries. Pull up everything we have on humans," Zyrith ordered. The data was sparse. Humanity had been discovered approximately 200 years ago, a species barely capable of interstellar travel. They had been dismissed as insignificant, their small territory ignored by the major powers. There were references to trade agreements, minor diplomatic incidents, nothing of consequence. And then Zyrith found a single entry, buried deep in classified archives. It was a warning issued by the consortium to all member species. Do not harm the architects. Below, it was a list of 12 names. 12 humans who were to be treated with absolute deference, whose requests were to be granted without question, whose safety was to be ensured at any cost. The 7th name on the list was Cole Bennett. Zyrith felt the blood drain from her face. She turned to find Cole standing in the doorway of the command deck, his containment cell empty behind him. The guards who should have stopped him were nowhere to be seen. "I apologize for the dramatics," he said quietly, "but I needed you to understand that I'm not your prisoner. I never was." Part 3. The architects, they sat in Zyrith's private quarters, a bottle of Valdorian wine between them that neither had touched. Cole had explained, in calm and measured tones, the truth that the consortium had hidden from younger species for millennia. Humanity was not young. They were unimaginably old. Billions of years ago, when the first stars were still cooling, a species had risen that would come to be known as the architects. They had built the hyperlanes that connected the galaxy. They had seeded life on countless worlds. They had created the very laws of physics that governed reality. And then, for reasons no one understood, they had chosen to forget. They had rewritten their own biology, shortening their lifespans, suppressing their abilities, hiding themselves among the younger races. They became human, small and fragile and mortal, and they had lived that way for eons. But some remembered. "There are 12 of us," Cole explained. "Caretakers, you might call us. We retain the old knowledge, the old abilities. Our job is to watch, to guide when necessary, to intervene when absolutely required." "And your ship?" Zyrith asked. "The Meridian?" Pain flickered across Cole's face. "A mistake. There is a faction among the younger races who have learned fragments of the truth. They believe that if they can capture and study an architect, they can unlock the secrets of creation itself. They attacked you. They killed my crew. Good people, most of whom knew nothing about what I really am." His hands tightened on the arms of his chair. 73 men and women, dead because someone wanted to become a god. Zyrith was silent for a long moment. "What happens now?" Cole looked up, and this time his smile was genuine, if weary. "That depends on you, Commander. You found me. You treated me as a prisoner rather than a guest, but you did not harm me. That earns you a choice." He leaned forward. "The faction that attacked the Meridian is called the Obsidian Circle. They operate from a hidden base in the Nexion cluster. I intend to find them, and I intend to make certain they never harm anyone again." His eyes met hers. "I could use allies who aren't afraid to face difficult truths." Part 4. The gathering storm, the Valdorian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexion cluster. 47 warships bristling with weapons. Zyrith had expected resistance from her own commanders, but the revelation of the architects had silenced all dissent. Even Admiral Vorath, who trusted no one and nothing, had bent his head in something approaching reverence. Cole stood on the observation deck, watching the stars wheel past. He had changed in the days since leaving Valdorian space. The gentle academic facade had cracked, revealing something harder beneath. Something ancient. Lieutenant Myra Hayes, the Meridian's sole other survivor, stood beside him. She was a young woman with short, dark hair and steady hands, one of the few humans who had known Cole's true nature before the attack. "You're really going to do this," she said. It wasn't a question. They made their choice when they killed our friends. Cole's voice was flat. "I've spent 3,000 years trying to guide the younger races toward peace. I've watched civilizations rise and fall, species evolve and go extinct. I have been patient beyond any measure you can imagine." He turned to face her, and for just a moment, Mira saw something behind his eyes that made her soul want to flee. But patience has limits. The Obsidian Circle's base was hidden inside a hollowed asteroid, shielded by technology stolen from a dozen different species. Their fleet was small but deadly, crewed by fanatics who believed they were on the verge of godhood. They did not expect what came for them. Cole walked onto the surface of the asteroid without a suit, without protection of any kind. The void held no danger for him. He raised one hand, and the base's shields simply ceased to exist, the energy folding in on itself and vanishing. Zareth watched from her command deck, her throat dry. "What is he?" Voreth whispered. "Something we forgot existed." Zareth replied. Part 5. The stars bow. The leader of the Obsidian Circle was a Kethrani named Vornis, a brilliant scientist who had spent his entire life seeking the secret of immortality. When Cole walked through the final blast doors, stepping over the bodies of guards who had simply fallen asleep at his approach, Vornis was waiting for him. "You can't kill me," Vornis said, his voice trembling with desperate bravado. "I've studied your kind. I know your weaknesses. You're bound by rules, laws you cannot break." Cole stopped in the center of the chamber. Around him, the surviving members of the Obsidian Circle cowered, finally understanding the magnitude of their error. "You're half right," Cole said softly. "We do have rules. We cannot create life from nothing. We cannot destroy a star in anger. We cannot remake the laws of physics without consensus from the others." He stepped closer, and Vornis scrambled backward. "But those rules exist to protect the universe from us, Vornis, not to protect you from justice." Cole raised his hand. The ceiling above them became transparent, revealing the vast sweep of the galaxy beyond. And then, impossibly, the stars began to move. They shifted in their courses, ancient lights that had burned for billions of years bending to follow the motion of Cole's fingers. The Voldorians on their ships fell to their knees. The Obsidian Circle wept. Even Vornis, in his last moments of defiance, felt his soul crack beneath the weight of what he was witnessing. "I am Cole Bennett," the human said, and his voice echoed across frequencies that should not exist. "I am an architect of the cosmos, a builder of worlds, a keeper of the flame that burns between the stars. You killed my friends. You threatened the peace I've worked for 3,000 years to build." The stars stopped moving. The galaxy held its breath. "For that, you will be forgotten." Cole closed his hand. Vornis and his followers did not die. Something worse happened. They simply ceased to have ever existed, their names. The artifact pulsed with energy, sending waves of light across the command center. Vornis held it high, his old body trembling with excitement. Around him, the surviving members of the Obsidian Circle watched with expressions of hope and terror mixed together. "For 50 years, I searched for proof that your kind existed," Vornis said. "For 50 years, I was called mad, delusional, a fool chasing ancient myths. And now here you stand, exactly as the legends described." Cole did not move. His eyes were fixed on the artifact, watching its energy patterns. "You do not know what you are holding," he said quietly. You think you understand, but you do not. I understand enough. This device connects to the fundamental forces of creation. It allows the user to reshape reality itself. Vornis laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. I have spent 5 years learning its secrets. I can feel the power flowing through it. Soon, that power will be mine. It will destroy you. That is what the weak say about any power they cannot control. Vornis aimed the artifact at Cole. But I am not weak. I am the most brilliant mind in 3 galaxies. If your ancestors could wield this power, so can I. The artifact began to hum. Its light shifted from white to deep purple, and to colors that had no names. Reality around it started to bend. On the flagship, Xyrath watched through the sensors as the asteroid began to change. Portions of it were shifting, reforming, becoming something new. Alarms sounded across the bridge. Commander, the asteroid is transforming, Vareth reported. I do not understand these readings. Matter is being converted into energy and back again. Cole, Myra whispered. What is happening to Cole? Inside the command center, Cole stood in the center of the storm. The artifact's power washed over him like waves crashing on a shore. Vornis poured more energy into the device, trying to break through Cole's defenses, but Cole did not fall. He did not even move. You are strong, Vornis said, surprised. Stronger than I expected. I am what you made me remember, Cole replied. His voice had changed. It was deeper now, echoing with harmonics that should have been impossible. When you attacked my ship, when you killed my friends, you reminded me of something I had spent 3,000 years trying to forget. He raised his hands, and the artifact's light bent toward him like water flowing downhill. You reminded me what I really am. Vornis tried to pull back, tried to stop the flow of power, but it was too late. The artifact had found its true master. The energy it contained recognized Cole's touch, responded to his will. This belongs to my people, Cole said. It was created by architects billions of years ago. It knows who we are. It knows who it should serve. No. Vornis screamed. I have worked too hard, sacrificed too much. The power is mine. The power was never yours to take. Cole closed his hands, and the artifact went dark. In that moment of darkness, something changed. Cole reached deep inside himself, past the human form he had worn for thousands of years, past the memories of ordinary life and ordinary death. He reached for the thing he had been before, the thing he had chosen to forget. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with stars. On the flagship, every sensor went blind. Mira pressed her face against the window, trying to see through the sudden darkness that surrounded the asteroid. Then the darkness cleared, and she saw something that made her heart stop. The stars around them were moving. Ancient lights that had burned for billions of years were shifting in their courses, rotating around a single point, the asteroid where Cole stood. They moved slowly, majestically, following the pattern of his gestures. The stars, Xyrath breathed. He is moving the stars. On the bridge, officers fell to their knees. Hardened warriors who had faced death without fear now trembled at something they could not understand. Only Myra remained standing, her eyes wide with wonder. He told me, she said. He told me they built them. Inside the command center, Cole faced Vornis and the obsidian circle. The scientist had fallen back, his scales pale with terror. The artifact lay forgotten on the floor, no longer needed. I am Cole Bennett, the human said. His voice echoed across frequencies that living ears were not meant to hear. I am an architect of the cosmos. I helped build the stars you sail between. I helped write the laws that govern your reality. He stepped forward, and Vornis crawled backward. You killed my friends. You murdered 73 people who had done nothing wrong. You thought you could steal power that has existed since the beginning of time. Cole raised one hand. Above them, visible through the broken ceiling, the stars continued their impossible dance. I could destroy you. I could erase you from existence so completely that no one would ever remember your name. Vornis whimpered. The scientist behind him begged for mercy. But that would make me no better than you. Cole lowered his hand. The stars stopped moving, returning slowly to their natural positions. Instead, I will do something worse. I will let you live with the knowledge of what you have done. I will let you spend the rest of your days knowing that you killed innocent people for nothing. He looked at Vornis with eyes that had seen the birth of galaxies. You wanted to understand the architects. Now you do. We are not gods of destruction. We are builders. We create, we protect, we guide. Cole picked up the artifact and held it gently. You will forget everything you learned from this device. You will forget how to use it, how to find it, how to unlock its secrets. But you will remember this moment. You will remember what you saw today. He closed his eyes, and light washed through the room. When it faded, Vornis and his followers lay on the floor, unconscious but alive. They would wake with no memory of the artifact's secrets, no knowledge of how to reach for Forbidden's power. But they would remember the human who had walked through their defenses like they were nothing. They would remember the stars. Bowing to his will, Cole walked out of the command center. The asteroid was quiet now. The strange transformations had stopped, and the structure was stable. He made his way back to the surface, still carrying the artifact. A Valdorian shuttle was waiting for him. Mira stood at the door, her face wet with tears. I saw, she said. Everyone saw. I know. Cole's voice was human again, tired and sad. I hoped you would not have to see that part of me. Are you afraid I will be scared of you now? Cole looked at her. Are you? Myra stepped forward and hugged him tightly. I watched you spare people who killed our friends. I watched you choose mercy when you could have chosen destruction. She pulled back and looked into his eyes. How could I be afraid of someone like that? On the flagship, Zereth watched the shuttle approach. Her hands were still shaking, but not from fear. Something deeper had taken hold of her. Something like awe or maybe faith. Admiral, she said quietly. Make a note in the ship's log. What should I write, Commander? Zyrith thought about the human she had found floating in space. The prisoner she had put in a cell without even assigning guards. She thought about the warning in the ancient files. Do not harm the architects. Write this, she said. On this day, we learned that humanity is not a young species. They are the oldest. They are the builders. They are the ones who created everything we know. She paused, watching the shuttle dock with her ship. And they chose to become small, to become mortal, to become kind. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Vorath wrote down her words. Is that all, Commander? One more thing. Zyrith smiled slightly. Write that we are honored to be their allies. Now and forever. 3 months later, a message arrived at the Valdorian homeworld. It came from Earth, from the small blue planet where humanity made their home. It was addressed to Commander Zyrith personally. Thank you for your wisdom and your courage, the message read. The Galactic Consortium has recognized the Valdorian Empire as a protected ally of the architects. You and your people are always welcome in our space. Your friend Cole. Zyrith read the message in her private quarters, alone with her thoughts. Outside her window, the stars burned bright and eternal. She thought about everything she had seen, the human in the cell, the ancient power awakening, the stars themselves moving at a single being's command, and she thought about what Cole had said when she asked him why the architects had chosen to become human. Because power without compassion is meaningless, he had told her. And compassion without understanding is blind. We needed to live as mortals to truly understand what we had created. We needed to love and lose and struggle to appreciate the gift of existence. Xyrath saved the message to her personal archives. She would keep it forever, a reminder of the day she learned the truth about the universe. Humanity had built the stars, and they had chosen to walk among them as equals. That, she realized, was the most human thing of all. The end.